What is one critical game that will decide who is crowned this season's ACC football champion? What non-conference game will push a team into the playoffs? Happy Memorial Day weekend to you all. We discuss this and more next on the ACC Huddle. All right, welcome in to tonight's edition of the ACC Huddle. My name is Jeff Lowe from the Cavalier Connection and the ACC Huddle podcast, and I'm joined tonight, as always, by my counterpart, Jay Ballard, also from the Cavalier Connection. How are you doing tonight, Jay?
I'm doing okay. Recovering from that earlier baseball loss by the Who's, but other than that, doing well. Looking forward to the lacrosse tomorrow, but excited to talk football tonight. So
no doubt. So tonight we're gonna get into the ACC football schedule. Take a look and see what games stand out to Jay and myself as games that may make the difference this coming season in winning an ACC title, maybe making the 12-team playoff. Or even, winning a bowl game or getting into a bowl game, I should say. So we're going to kind of get right at it. As I look at the ACC as a whole, I feel like the season's wide open. I think there's 3 or 4 teams that have an over-under of 9.5 games. Clemson, Florida State, Miami. I think Louisville and NC State are 8.5. UNC, Virginia Tech, maybe 7.5, and SMU. That's 8 teams within 2 games of each other. So you got to feel like it's wide open.
I think there's a lot of teams in Jeff that, like you said, if a team is capable of winning 8 games, which is what that 7.5 over under says for those teams, then you're capable of winning 10. So I think there's a lot of teams, and then you could have a dark horse. There's always a team that surpasses their expectations as well.
No doubt. You look up and down the conference, and just like in the NFL, every year there's quite the turnover for teams to make the playoffs, and you just don't ever know. There's a sleeper sitting in there that will end up winning 7-8 games and getting themselves a shot. So we're going to kind of break down the season as the weeks go on of what games kind of stood out to us. And the first game of the season, really, I'm going to just bring this one up here. We got Florida State against Georgia Tech to start the season. And, Jay, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I put this game in the list to talk about because, one, I'm anxious to see what DJ looks like with Florida State. And, just the way Florida State ended last year, it was controversial. They were left out of the playoff, and then they went and got trounced by 60. Now, everybody knows that game was played with second, third stringers against Georgia's top. So, I don't think you can take a whole lot away, but the score was the score. 63-3 was the final. So Florida State should come out like their hair's on fire. But the game's in Ireland, a lot of travel. Georgia Tech has some talent. They're not going to lay down, especially the quarterback, Haynes. Is it Haynes King?
It's King.
Yeah. So I expect Georgia Tech's going to be able to do a little bit of something on offense. And, if DJ is not the guy, or if he's having to shake off that early season rust like a lot of quarterbacks do, that game could be closer than expected. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. And it's really like a standalone game almost. I think there's a couple other games, but nothing on the scale of Florida State, Georgia Tech.
Right. And then when you got a quarterback like Georgia Tech has, Haynes King, they've got him projected as top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the ACC. And, he'll throw the ball, but he also, as mobile as he is, you never know. When you play a team with a mobile quarterback, they get going. The defense maybe is lagging a little bit. I don't know. After the travel, and next thing you know, they broke loose and get up 21-zip, and Florida State's got to make a comeback. I mean, it's just always dangerous to me. You get nervous when this is what football is these days. You got to be dual threaded and mobile, but that guy is very mobile, and it's a little extra to worry about for the defense. So you never can tell how that would turn out. And
I've said before, I just don't trust DJ. So he's going to have to prove it to me, because I don't believe in him as a top flight quarterback.
I agree. I felt the same way. I can't get those Clemson years out of my head. And so we'll see. Nothing against the guy. I wish him the best. But we'll see it. I'll have to believe it when I see it. And then moving on, the following week, this is as big as it gets here. Clemson and Georgia, and then Miami and Florida, a couple games that we have picked out. You look at the Clemson and Georgia game, of course, that game's being played with Mercedes-Benz where the Falcons play. So it's a road game for Clemson. I'll be interested to see. It's just a big game to start the season. Is Clemson going to be a national contender, or we haven't seen that national contender Clemson in quite some time. And getting off to a good start. You got your quarterback, Kubiak or whatever for Clemson. Can he build confidence against a Georgia team? I think Georgia had quite the turnover in this offseason, but, Georgia's defensively has always been, just a stellar defense. But if Clemson can get off to a good start and find a way to win this game, I mean, number one, the ACC, they look at the ACC just like they did in basketball is not not very strong conference as what they did to Florida State at the end. So getting off to a good start, becoming on the national level as well as representing the ACC. If you can compete and win against Georgia, there's not much more you can say there.
Yeah, to be honest, Jeff, I think this is a game, we've talked about previously where we think Clemson, and we talked about this last week actually with Brian from the Boundary Corner. I think Clemson's about to take a step back.
Yep.
Maybe 3 steps back. And I think the first game is going to be a take to the woodshed. Georgia's going to smack them. I don't think it's a close game. And being an ACC guy, I don't like to say that, but Georgia's the new Alabama. They're getting the top guys every year. And while Clemson has their good recruits as well, not hitting the transfer portal for even one guy, I just can't see. And you're going in to me with a quarterback who, again, he's a good quarterback, but he's not a Deshaun Watson. He's not he's not on that level of quarterback. So you're going to have to be better at other positions. And tell me a position that Clemson's better than Georgia.
Right. Well, Clemson, the downfall began at the quarterback. And I hate to bring it up. It's our guy that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Once Ukulele, he was a highly sought after recruited quarterback, and it just didn't pan out. And, since Trevor left, the team has just struggled at quarterback. And they had years where they were rolling, with your Lawrences, your Watsons. What's his face? He played for the Jets. He never really made it, but prior to when they first started getting hot, out of Clemson. I can't say his name all of a sudden. I can see his face right now, but we'll see. And then you also got Miami and Florida, and this is a game that, on paper, Miami should win handily. I think Florida is not highly regarded this year. I've seen over-unders 4.5, 5.5. They're a team that looks like they're trying to make a bowl game. So, we've talked about Miami quite a bit.
This is a prove-it game.
That's it.
I mean, you're going into the swamp. And I always talk about this. Before we ever started doing podcasts, I would always talk about, but they don't know they're bad yet. They don't know that they're
Right.
not good. They've been in spring practice. They've been, they're Florida Gators. You're telling me that Florida's going to go into a game against Miami and think they're not going to win? That's not going to happen. So Florida's going in with full confidence. It's the season opener. You're going to get their best shot.
Right.
And I think Miami wins, but I think it's really close.
Yeah, I got to tell you.
I believe that's a night game. Isn't that a night game?
I'm not 100% sure. Okay. But I would not be surprised one bit if Florida won that game.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me.
Miami, the hype is always there. They just haven't lived up to that hype. And going into Florida, like you said, first game of the season, Florida's an SEC school. And no, it's not Urban Meyer's Florida. It's not Steve Spurrier's Florida. But they still got Florida on their chest. And
they're still top-level athletes.
Yes.
Florida's not recruiting, 2-star guys.
Right.
They're all 3, 4, 5-star guys. Mostly, I think the 3 and 4 variety right now because they haven't been hitting the home runs in the recruiting cycle. But didn't they? Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff. You might remember this. Didn't Florida open with Utah last year and beat a good Utah team? Or
I believe was it Utah? I believe they did get a nice upset last year to start the year. Well, Florida started out pretty good last year.
Yeah, I want to say it was Utah that they. And I want to say they upset them in that week 1 game.
I'll be honest, I think I lost some money on that game, actually, as you're talking about it. And then another big play in this game, you got Cam Ward, who everybody says is potentially the best quarterback in the ACC. I mean, this is a big game going to the Swamp, and he can send a message to the ACC and the country. And this is a game, these 2 games we just talked about, these are national non-conference games for teams that are top 25 ranked teams to start the year. I'm guessing. I'm sure Clemson and Miami probably will be with an opportunity to show the nation they're here and they're going to be here to compete this year. Or if Florida beats Miami, it may be a long year in South Florida.
I've already got a sprinkle on the under 9.5 win total for Miami. So I'd love to get one of those. I need 3 losses. I'd love to get one sprinkled in week 1.
Right. Oh, moving on. Another non-conference game. We got Tennessee and NC State September the 7th. This one's being played in Charlotte. So I don't know how far is Charlotte from. That's almost neutral. Because
it's close to
Tennessee. It's not that far from Charlotte, but I'm talking Tennessee. But another opportunity, NC State's an over/under of 8.5. Another opportunity for them to send a message to the country. And I've looked at NC State's schedule as a whole, and they seem to me to have a favorable schedule. So, if they can win. Their harder games, I think they've got Clemson at home. They travel to Georgia Tech and to UNC. But other than that, it's all the more difficult games, though, are at home. And if you can beat Tennessee, send a message to the country, the ACC is here to play. And then also to the ACC, because like I said, I think the ACC is just wide open. I could see NC State playing right there for the ACC championship this year as well. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think NC State, they just win 9 games like every year. Was it 3 years in a row they've won 9 or something like that?
Right.
I don't think this is going to be one of those 9. I think they probably lose this game.
Yeah, I agree.
Tennessee's they're strong. They do a good job of recruiting. And but we'll see. I mean, it's certainly a game. It wouldn't shock me if they won, but I think Tennessee's a more talented team going in and should win the game.
I agree. We move on here to we got first. West Virginia against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so this one is this is that early season backyard brawl. There's not a whole lot of games on the week of September 14th that were really interesting. So when you're looking, when you got the tuner, you got the remote, you're trying to find something to watch. You want a game that has a lot of passion in it, and I think you're going to see two teams that aren't that good going at it. I had put in the win totals in
5.5.
Yeah, 5.5. While West Virginia 6.5, right?
Right.
So, I mean, there's not a whole lot expected there, but those teams hate each other. There's a big dislike there. So, just a lot of passion in that game, and whoever does win that game is going a long way towards getting towards bowl eligibility because that's one of those toss-ups, and you got to win some of those toss-ups if you're going to hit your number.
Right, no doubt. One thing about the ACC, I know we were just talking just a minute ago, but we see these over-unders and we look at these games and we say like I said, NC State, you look at the schedule, to me, they have a favorable schedule. But, every year, these favorable schedules, you slip up and they lose one. Somebody loses one of those games to somebody they shouldn't. Stanford will slip up and beat somebody.
Yeah, Pitt's well coached, and they were, a little bit down last year too.
Right.
So, they probably need to respond for Narduzzi this year. And like I said, he's a good coach. I got a lot of respect for that program. Virginia always seems to struggle with Pitt, but we'll see how they come out. West Virginia, they're pretty evenly matched. So two teams that don't like each other, pretty evenly matched. It makes for good television.
Slugfest. There's one more big one that weekend, and this one kind of hits a little bit close to home for us. Virginia Tech and ODU at ODU. And the thing about this game is you look at the schedule, and I'm just going to tell you right now, I believe if I'm putting my money out there, I'm betting Virginia Tech.
Depends on the spread.
Not with the spread. Probably not with the spread.
Okay.
But this is a critical game for Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is 0-2 traveling to Norfolk to play ODU. ODU's had their number in Norfolk, and it just doesn't make any sense. And this game is big because we've talked about this. I really believe Virginia Tech, and I, we like to think we were the first ones to talk about this, but I see a lot of people writing about, you look at Virginia Tech's schedule, they are a dark horse to make some national noise this year. And you cannot slip up and lose at ODU again. Like, this is a game Virginia Tech needs to come in and take care of.
Yeah, they need to be up like 21-0 after the first quarter. Just leave no doubt early. Don't let ODU hang around. Because in those games that they've lost, it's been, ODU's gotten off to a good start, and then before you know it, it's halftime. It's still a good game. You get into the second half of a one-score game, and anything can happen. So they need to put that game to bed early.
Yeah, you don't want to let ODU get any confidence. And look, this is the ACC Huddle. I'm just telling you right now, I'm pulling for ODU in that game.
as are both of us, because as we've said before, we both went to ODU, so we have a lot of love for that school down in Norfolk.
And we're the Cavalier connection as well. So Virginia Tech's not a team you're going to see me pull for, but I have some high expectations for the Virginia Tech team this year. It's got me a hair nervous, but I think that's a big one. And moving on September 27th, right back, we're talking Virginia Tech and Miami. How about that? A former Big East rivalry here in the ACC. Once again, let's say Miami takes care of business against Florida. Here we go. Another opportunity for them to get a big win. And this is one of those games. If Virginia Tech's going to make that run, winning in Miami. And I was going to say, Virginia Tech has actually lost the last 3 times these two teams have played, in 5 of the last 6. Now, they haven't played since 2022, but for either one of these teams. You win this game, there's depending on where we're at this point in the season, not only does this go a long way for the ACC, it goes a long way and potentially nationally. And I believe the 27th is a Friday night. Is that correct, Jay?
Yeah, this is a Friday night game.
Friday night.
It says time is TBD, but it's a Friday game, so we know it's going to be a night game.
Right.
More than likely like an 8 o'clock kickoff on ACC Network or something like that. But yeah, this is two teams that come in, and if you were to go to either one of these programs right now, they will both expect to be undefeated getting into this game. They both can't win, so the game's at Miami, and I honestly I don't think that means a whole lot. They have a very soft home crowd. If Virginia Tech is undefeated, I could see them traveling very well to a spot like Miami, because we know how well those fans for Virginia Tech travel. So this is a game I fully expect Virginia Tech to win, and we'll see. I hate it, but like you said, we both feel very strongly about the Virginia Tech performance that we're going to have coming this year. So
yeah, there's one thing about it. There's no hostile environment when you travel to Miami. So
no.
There's just no home field.
I mean, they're just not tough.
Right.
They got a lot of talent, but they're soft.
They need to bring their boy Jimmy Johnson back and get the
Didn't they have Dan Campbell? Lions head coach Dan Campbell.
I can't recall.
Wasn't he a guy that was? Isn't he a Miami guy?
He may have been. They got to go back to the.
Yeah.
They got to go back to the convicts versus Catholics days.
Yeah.
But
even Campbell's not a Miami guy. They need somebody like him.
What's that? Oh yeah.
That's the type coach they need, because they always have talent.
Right.
But they don't ever have anybody that seems to draw it out.
Right. It's been a long time since they have. Moving on here. September 28th, Louisville's at Notre Dame. And Louisville is another one of those teams. I think they're 8.5 over under this year. High hopes for them. What's your thoughts there, Jay? We already know this.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Brom down in Louisville took them in year one and got them to 10 wins. Which I did not remember that until I started doing a little research for this episode. And I had to go to multiple sites because I'm like, I don't believe that. I don't think that's accurate. And I went to another site. I don't think that's accurate. I checked like 3 spots and confirmed they did win 10 games last year.
Right.
Now, and they've got a quarterback that's supposed to be better than the kid they had last year, Plummer, from Texas Tech. Now, the question with that kid is his health. Shu, I think is his name. Super talented kid. And for the second year in a row, he's brought in the number 1 ranked recruiting class for the transfer portal. So they are stacked across the board. To me, along with Virginia Tech, Louisville is, Clemson's always going to get talked about. Florida State's always going to get talked about. Miami is always going to get talked about. But to me, Louisville is one of those teams that if they get this game, they're going to probably be 3-0 going in. If they get, that game against Notre Dame, they're a dark horse team to run the table and make the college football playoff, and certainly a dark horse to at least make the ACC championship game.
Yeah, because they start the season. You see, they should be 3-0 if they beat Georgia Tech coming into that Notre Dame game. SMU's at home, Virginia.
Virginia always plays a little bit tough. You don't want to.
Correct.
And that's a sandwich game for them because SMU's pretty good and Miami is good. So
right. And then you got at Boston College, at Clemson. Stanford's on the road. But yeah, definitely. It's a team to look out for.
And we know Notre Dame. So that's a game there. That will be one of those could game day show up type games.
Right. And then you got Florida State versus SMU. And so this will be SMU's first ACC football game. First game in a Power 5 conference, or against their Power 5 conference foe. This team is over under 7.5. I'll just be interested to see what does SMU do. I mean, first game, and it's Florida State. It's a big boy, and to come out and have to play that one at home, I'm expecting. I don't know a whole heck of a lot about SMU, their home crowd, but I would think they would come out and support this, and but be interested to see what happens there.
Yeah, welcome to the ACC, boys. we didn't send you Wake Forest for the opener.
Right.
Here's your gift for joining. You get Florida State.
Yeah, no Stanford. We give you our best, and so that'll be interesting to see. But we move on. We have another Clemson showing, and Clemson. There's, as we said, all those teams that are right there, 7.5 and above. You're going to be seeing a lot of the same teams in our looks here. But Clemson against Florida State. I mean, this is as big as it gets. If the experts are correct, this is your game here for the ACC. These are your top two dogs. So Clemson traveling to Florida State. We know what kind of environment Florida State's in. And then the other storyline is DJ Ukulele playing against his former team. He's going to be amped up, wanting to do something big. And I'm going to guess this may be a night game potentially too, because this is a big one. This may go a long ways in deciding the ACC.
Yeah, you've got two teams here that are, when they go into every season, it's national championship or bust, due to their history. And, this is just going to be another one of those games that I think when we get to this point, we'll know Clemson's down a little bit. And so I think Florida State will be, even with a DJ who's not that great, he's going to get to play his old team. And, that always brings out the best in you. And so I think Florida State will actually probably win this game and win it comfortably. But you never know. It's a lot of talent on that field, a lot of future NFL players.
Right. What's the thought on Florida State's defense this year? Are we looking as good as we looked last year?
I think they lost quite a bit, but they reload. They're not.
Right.
They're not.
They're one of the big. Right. Right. Because, that defense can carry them along. That defense was something special last year.
Yeah.
And if you just have a quarterback who can if DJ Ukulele can just control the game, game manager, as that famous term is.
Yeah.
We'll see. The following we got on the 19th of October, actually a couple weeks later, we got a couple big ones. Once again, Miami's showing up about for all their games. They travel to Louisville for a big game there. At this point, like you said, I believe we're going to know what Miami is. We're going to probably know what Louisville is. I feel like Miami at this point is probably going to have a loss in the ACC, and Louisville could potentially be 3-0 in the ACC coming into this game. So a big game that could go a long ways. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this will be one of those high-scoring games where they're just going to go up and down the field on each other. But again, I really like this Louisville team. I feel if their win total being 8.5 scares me a little bit. Virginia Tech I love because it's 7.5, and you have a little bit more buffer. 8.5, you that's a big swing to between winning 9 and 8 games. But I love this Louisville team. More than that, I love Coach Braum. He's just a winner, and he's bringing in the talent. He's a good football coach. I think they win that one. And then Virginia Clemson. I don't think you had this one on the list for a big game, Jeff. But
it's a big game for me, but I didn't for the ACC. But there are some storylines there.
Well, that's why I put this there. This is Coach Tony Elliott's first trip back to Clemson. This is really you're looking and I don't know if you can pull up the Virginia schedule quickly, Jeff, but
yeah, I got you.
When you look at Virginia's schedule, so I'm gonna say something that's crazy right now. I think Virginia goes into that Clemson game with as good or better a win-loss record than Clemson.
That's a big one.
That's a hot take.
That's a hot take.
I truly believe it. I think Virginia's got a really good chance to be Richmond. I think they could win that. Wake Forest, they could win that. Maryland, they can win that. At Coastal, they can win that. Split with Boston and Boston College, Louisville. You probably need to win the Boston College game to do that. 5-1 potentially. I mean, if everything went correct, you'd be 6-0 in that spot. And if you did that, Clemson loss, App State win, NC State. I don't know.
They can go either way. They can go either way.
Stanford's a win. At Florida State, loss. At Wake Forest, win. So I don't think it's crazy that what I just said. And if Virginia goes in with a better record, there's a lot of pressure on Dabo in that game because everybody knows Coach Elliott, and he are very close. And there's nothing Coach Elliott would love more than to get a signature win for the program under him, even though it may come against a team, on the downside of their reign of college football, kind of. It's still a signature win for the program. So that's a big one to me.
You're bringing back the early 90s here. Virginia had never beat Clemson before. And the Clemson team, they're downward slide compared to what they had begun, and Virginia got them. So maybe you're onto something here. Jay, I got you and Skip Bayless confused there for a hot second. I hope you're right. I could definitely, if Virginia's going to be a bowl team this year, I think that scenario has to play out. It has to play out because that back half of the schedule is ultra difficult. So I could definitely see them being somewhere close with Clemson going into that game.
If I put my head on backwards so you can't see the logo,
we have lost Jay. Jay, we lost you for a second. You're frozen. Now you're back.
Okay. Sorry.
The powers to be said we got to get this guy off the screen. He's making some wild predictions. And Coach Elliott wasn't too thrilled with it because he felt like you were guaranteeing something there.
Oh,
and then
no.
Coach Sweeney was not thrilled about that commentary either, and they kind of got into our lines there. But you're back, and look, if Virginia's going to be a bowl team, I think you have to be absolutely right there. And we both see Virginia on the rise, but it's just a tough schedule this year.
Yeah, it is.
I knew exactly why you picked that game. Here we got another one. Florida. Here we go. It's a theme. Florida State and Miami. They're about every time I click here. Another big one. Florida State's going to a hostile environment. I mean, they're going to Miami. It's nothing hostile about it. But once again, Miami, you look at this Miami schedule. When you have an over-under of 9.5 and you're playing this schedule to go along with it, you just got to prove it to me. I feel like easy money is on that under for Miami. But once again, they got Florida State at home. Another game. If the experts are correct and both of these teams are over under 9.5 type teams, and once again, we've got another game right here that could decide the ACC.
Yeah, this is one of those that you're looking at, this could be a playoff elimination game by this point.
Right.
Because both teams may have at least one loss at this point. I certainly think Miami will, and Florida State probably does as well. So, you lose two, and more than likely you're not going to get in. But we'll see. Florida State's superior, but you've got this rivalry. These teams don't like each other. Most of these guys know each other very well because they've played each other for years. So it's a fun game. It's a fun game to watch and a lot of talent.
The winner of the ACC championship game in Charlotte gets a automatic berth into the playoff, correct?
I believe so, yes.
So, you could potentially have 2 losses. You just be eliminated from an at-large bid.
Yeah,
most likely. Got you. And then we move. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'll save that prediction for the end of the show. I was gonna make a prediction about the ACC championship game, but we'll save that.
Okay. Well, November 2nd, and here's your team, Louisville, playing against Clemson in Clemson. Another big one for Louisville. As you said, they're an 11 or 12 win team. So let's hear what you got to say.
Yeah, I mean, no, you go to Clemson and there's no gimme. Even if Clemson's a little bit down, it won't be easy. Clemson, we'll see how the season has played out to this point, but I expect that to be a really competitive game. I added the Virginia Tech Syracuse, I think.
Yeah, you did.
And I tried to when I went through the schedule, I wanted to at least mention every team in the ACC at least once.
You didn't.
This is we didn't mention Wake.
We missed Stanford and Wake.
Stanford. We got Stanford, I think.
Stanford and Cal. You're right. We missed Wake, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't find a big game for Wake, so my apologies to Wake Forest fans.
Wake versus Virginia.
Yeah, that is a big game for them. But no, I think Syracuse is always tough at home. They got a new coach, they got a new quarterback. The kid from Ohio State, that transferred there. You don't really know what you're going to get when you get a new system, and you get a lot of transfers in, transfers out, and but this is a game where Virginia Tech. I think the next week is Virginia Tech Clemson. If we look ahead at the next, okay. So this is one of those games where if Virginia Tech looks ahead, Syracuse has the talent to beat them. They're not depleted of talent. They've got some good football players, and they've lost games in that dome before. Syracuse has had. That's just a weird place to play, and it seems like there are some strange happenings go on there. So this is just a tricky game there for Tech. And then UNC Florida State, again, we hadn't talked about UNC yet. I'm not a believer in Carolina this year. I think Florida State probably wins this game pretty handily. But what are your thoughts on UNC?
So I look at UNC's schedule, and I just want to pull that up real quick. And UNC, I think, is an over-under of, 7.5 maybe?
6.5 or 7.5?
7.5.
Okay.
And I look at the schedule, and I wasn't very high on them, and I we did a collab with Heel Brothers came on, and I first of all, they've got them at I think 11-1 or 10-2. They have high hopes, but the schedule is very friendly. It is very friendly
schedule. So yeah, I mean, they could actually go into that Florida State game undefeated if everything fell right.
Correct. So
crazy.
You look at their situation. If you getting to start out just Minnesota, Charlotte, North Carolina Central, we'll start right there. You've got a new quarterback coming into play. So they've got the transfer quarterback Max Johnson, and then they also got Connor Harrell, who played for Drake May in the bowl game last year, and the fans were all about. They say Connor Harrell actually outplayed Max Johnson, but. So we don't know exactly whose job it's going to be. The thought is Max Johnson, but 3 games to get, I hate to say warmed up, but a nice little preseason there. And I didn't include
is that Minnesota game. Is that a true road game or is that a neutral game?
I believe it's at Minnesota.
If that's a true road game. They might get the boat road on them. Minnesota's they're not a bad team, and. One thing's for sure, they're going to play tough and physical right out the gate. I don't know what the line is on that game, but if Minnesota's getting points, I would probably take them with the points.
North Carolina, they loaded up in the receiver room. I know. We'll see. They gave weapons to their quarterback, but either way, you take those 3. Then you got JMU, which I thought about putting on our list tonight in North Carolina. JMU is just one of those teams. I mean, their history against Power 5 schools is not great in football yet. But I feel like they're just constantly on the rise, and that's a team that you just don't want to see on the schedule. And you got Duke, who's down, but it's Duke. It's a rivalry-ish game for football. Pitt at home. Georgia Tech, they get them at home. They go to Virginia, who they've had trouble with. At Florida State, another tough game. Then you got Wake Forest at home. Boston College is is on the road, and then you got NC State at home. So back to the game, UNC and Florida State. I expect Florida State to win this game, but like you said, I was trying to include most of these schools on this list as well. So, and North Carolina's schedule, I feel like is a little bit of the at least the first 3/4 of the schedule is a friendlier schedule, I'll say.
Yeah. And that Minnesota game is a return game from last year. I just looked it up. UNC beat Minnesota in, I believe it was Chapel Hill last year, 31-13. So,
okay.
Minnesota, though, you can't ever put a Big Ten team. It's not like Virginia Tech, who's opening with Vanderbilt. You can put that one in the win column. Right. That one's over. Minnesota's not Vanderbilt.
Right. Here, moving on. Here we got this is a national game here. Florida State at Notre Dame. That's a big one. If Florida State, we've talked about this already. If they want to play for a national title, this is one of those games. It's a resume building game. As long as they've taken care of their business early in the year and only have a loss or two, it's a game that could build their resume. Potentially I could see Florida State 6-1 or 5-2 coming into this game. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if you look at DJ's best game ever when he was at Clemson, I think it was the game that he started his freshman year against Notre Dame at Notre Dame when he had to step in for Trevor and start on the road there. So probably some fond memories of that place. But anytime you get to go to Notre Dame and play a big game, Florida State, Notre Dame, our whole lives, that's been a game that you just circle on the calendar and, just know I got 3.5 hours I'm going to be in front of the TV for. So I'm excited to watch that. Notre Dame's, again, they're loaded this year. They're a playoff contender themselves, and, that game's going to be tough. Notre Dame being at home could be the difference in that one. And then this is the game here for Clemson and Virginia Tech. We've talked about what we think of these two teams. I definitely think this will be played at night. It'll be hopping. Enter Sandman will be crazy. And then can Clemson, can they play up to that level? We'll see. I'm not sold on them, as I've said earlier, and that's going to be a tough game for them.
Yeah. The one thing about it is Dabo Swinney has been in every environment you can think of and every big game there is. So if anybody can get the team ready for that, it's a Dabo Swinney. So
yeah. And I pull for Clemson. I don't want people to think I'm poo-pooing Clemson.
Yeah.
I really like Clemson. I like Dabo, and I like the way he runs the program. And I honestly wish there were more coaches out there like him.
I'm a Dabo Swinney fan, a huge fan, and that's why I was so excited when we got Coach Elliott, because I was like, if we can get a piece of what Dabo is,
right?
When he first got that job at Clemson, I'll never forget it. And I don't recall who they were playing. It was he was a interim coach. They had just let go of what's his name, Tommy. Who was it coaching there before him?
It wasn't Bowden. Was
he
it?
Used to be an Auburn coach.
Was it
Bowden? Bowden. Terry Bowden. Bowden, that's who it was. And they get this young guy, Dabo Swinney. I'll never forget it. He came out, his neck, he was fired up coming out, to the rock. And his neck reminded me of Chris Bosh. It looked like a skinny neck. He was so fired up, man. And dang, man, they hit a home run, though, when they got him. When they gave him that job. I'm definitely a Dabo fan.
My favorite Dabo I guess, I don't know, moment or whatever is when after they won the national championship, he said, Colin Cowherd called us a frog. A frog. He was saying frog, but he was saying a fraud.
Right. Yeah. I like
frog, I guess, is you.
Yeah. But now when they win it this year, they're gonna say Jay Ballard called us a fraud. Yeah. Hey, and then you had a good point though. You look back to the week before, you got Virginia Tech against Syracuse. It's such a trap game,
right?
And we said this before. I see no way Virginia Tech doesn't hit the over this year, but I don't believe. I feel like they're going to be in contention, but I just don't believe they're going to be for the national title. I just feel like something's going to fall apart
at all.
No. But I mean, I don't. Yeah, I just think that Tech Syracuse game is definitely one I can see a slip up coming.
It could,
but
I hope.
What's that?
I hope.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Yeah. I hope they go 0-12.
The more fun slip up would be their last week of the season. Next one, this was one you had. I think you wanted to get everybody involved here. We had Boston College and SMU, which we already had SMU involved.
Yeah, so I think this game is really going to be a bowl eligibility type of game that you're looking at. Boston College, what are they, 5.5 or so? Projected
I
win?
believe they're. Yeah, I think they're 5.5, 4.5.
4.5, but they do have O'Brien as their head coach, right?
Right, correct.
So you're bringing in a guy who wins a lot of football games. I know people in the NFL kind of poo-pooed him, and he's kind of fallen from grace a little bit, but he's a good football coach, and he's a proven winner.
And he worked for Nick Saban. Well. Yeah, he's worked for the best, Nick Saban and Bill Belichick too. So
yeah,
you add that, and he knows that Boston area, Massachusetts area. I was going to mention, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter. They have one of their coaches had posted on Twitter to all high school coaches in Massachusetts. If you have a player that you want to be seen, send us the video. We will know we need to recruit this area hard. Like they're out trying to get guys. Yeah. You don't see that too often.
No, and I think he'll do well there. I just don't know that this year will be the year.
Correct. I think it's going to take some building, and I'd be excited if O'Brien was our coach. I'm happy for Tony Elliott in Virginia, but Bill O'Brien's a good one to bring in.
Absolutely,
reminds me of Al Groh coming back to Virginia.
That's exactly what I was going to say next, Joe. Exactly what I was going to say next.
Coming in after 1 year as an NFL coach with the Jets, and he got Virginia into a top 10 situation. It fell apart in the end, but he was a winner in the beginning.
Absolutely.
So once he got going, following week we got November 23rd. Here's where you got your Stanford and Cal in. Cal is actually, I think they're a 6.5. Yeah, 6.5 over under. Stanford's a 3.5. I've had a hard time finding 4 wins for Stanford on their schedule. But both the previous Pac-12 teams here get to stay on the West Coast for a change.
Yeah, I just put this game on the schedule because it's an ACC game. Stanford versus Cal, ACC. Like, that's crazy to me.
It is crazy. That is crazy. Atlantic Coast, coming from the Pacific Coast teams playing in the Atlantic Coast.
This is the college football world we live in. Stanford, Cal, big ACC game, which I think it will mean nothing. I think Cal wins easily. I think Stanford's probably pretty bad. But Stanford's very familiar with Cal, obviously. They won't have to travel far, so you never know. And then for Virginia, this will be their senior day game. This may be a game that this is the game before the season finale with Virginia Tech. So if they go into this game with 5 wins, you feel like they need to win this one to get to bowl eligibility.
No doubt.
And it's a game they can win, certainly. So just a big game. Not a whole lot of big games on the schedule this week. So, fighting for bowl eligibility here for probably both those teams.
Yeah, then we move on to November 30th, and it's big games galore here. Starting off right here, Florida. The SEC team has made it to the ACC Huddle twice tonight. They open with Miami, and they close it with Florida State. Florida State, you can't slip up here.
No, and I think Florida State at this point, see, this is what I talked about earlier. They didn't know they were bad yet when they were playing Miami. Now they know they're bad.
Right.
You got guys that going into the last game of the year, they're already hitting the portal, baby.
That's right.
Injuries, portal. Yeah, I see Florida State probably rolling Florida in that one.
And you got South Carolina and Clemson, another rivalry game.
Yeah, I mean Clemson. If you know, South Carolina is a team that you just don't know what you're going to get. They got a ton of talent. This is like a state championship game to them. I think they feel like even though they're in the SEC, they kind of they're looked at as like the little brother, and so it's one of those games that you know you just don't know. It's a rivalry game. They don't like each other, and I hope they continue to play as this college world continues to get shaken up. I like watching that game.
Yeah. Then you got Louisville playing against Kentucky. What's Kentucky looking like this year? Do you know what their over-under is?
It was a bowl eligible. It was bowl eligible. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head,
right.
But they're supposed to be pretty good. And they've beaten Louisville
right
quite a few times
right.
recently, including last year. So Kentucky has high expectations. I can't even think of what the over-under win total is, but it's pretty high.
That one.
Yeah, it's pretty high. So if Louisville is as good as I think they are, I mean, this could have national, implications. So we'll see. They don't seem to play well against Kentucky, and right. Who knows if that's like a Virginia Tech bugaboo type thing that's developing there, but we'll see.
And then finally, I added this one: NC State and Carolina. This is quite the rivalry game being played in North Carolina. Both of those teams, NC State was 8.5, North Carolina is a 7.5. If things fall into place for each one of these teams, it could be a game to decide an opportunity to play in the ACC championship game. NC State has beat North Carolina 6 out of the last 8 times they've played. When talking with the Hill brothers, they're like, NC State's like been their bugaboo. Yeah. Not as bad as ours with Virginia Tech, but they've had a bugaboo there. And so that's always a fun game. At least for North Carolina, they're playing them at home because that NC State crowd is wild.
Yeah, they're pretty good. And I think this game is probably more for bowl positioning. I think both these teams will be in a bowl, but NC State will, who knows what the line will be going into that one. A lot of football will be played between now and then, but the early line would probably have NC State favored by, between 4 and 7, I would think. Right. But we'll see. Another good rivalry game. We didn't even throw up there the biggest game of the year, Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I didn't want to discuss this one tonight. I'll save that one for we'll see.
So my bold prediction though, because that was the last week we were going to talk about. Right. There's nothing else after that for the game.
Go ahead. Yep. Go ahead.
So one of Louisville or Virginia Tech is going to play for the ACC championship. I don't know which one it's going to be, but one of those two is playing for the ACC championship. And it could be both of them against each other. It wouldn't shock me.
You said Louisville and Virginia Tech.
Or Virginia Tech. One of those two teams will.
I had to make sure everybody knew we have a prediction on the table here. Jay has made a prediction. Louisville or Virginia Tech will be.
You caught me off guard with that one. That was good.
Yeah, well, I hope it's Louisville. And, we could see it happening. Those schedules, Florida State, Clemson are playing. We don't have the trust in a Miami. So, and then looking at Virginia Tech's schedule, I could definitely see them being there. I think the football season is going to be a fun season. I'm looking forward to it. ACC Huddle, we're kind of at a dead point right now. We're covering things as best we can. These are guesses. When the games get started and we're able to watch these games, and there's going to be a ton to talk about football and basketball season. So looking forward to the season. I think things are wide open there. So Did you have something there, Jay?
Nope.
So I did want to move forward here before we wrap things up tonight. So ACC Baseball Tournament is going on. Semifinals are tomorrow. And, we're Virginia people. They got put out today by Florida State. So Florida State's going to play the winner of Carolina and Wake Forest, which I was checking the score. Last I see is 4-0 Wake, maybe in the 7th. I'm not sure if my computer's updated there. I was thinking this one might be about to be over. But they'll play tomorrow at 1. Miami and Duke play tomorrow at 5. And then the championship will be Sunday at noon on ESPN 2. So, and then, the ACC is going to have a ton playing in the NCAA tournament. And there'll be multiple teams hosting, being able to host some regional games. So exciting stuff within the baseball world. Do you have anything to add there, Jay? Before we wrap it
looking
up?
forward to the selection show and where all these ACC teams fall. How many are we going to get to host? I mean, I think we could get as many as 6 of the
Right.
6 of the 16, maybe 4 at least, maybe 5. I mean, 6 would probably be one too many. I think we probably get 5 out of the 16 to host.
Going into the day, they have Virginia hosting as a projection and as the national 10 seed, but losing the day, I don't know if that's going to happen.
I do think we'll maintain the host spot, but it'll probably be around 13 or 14.
Got you. All right. Well, before we wrap it up, I did want to wish everybody a safe and happy Memorial Day weekend. Cavalier Connection, the ACC Huddle. We don't talk politics, but Jay and I, we're just country boys, and we're proud to be residents of the good old US of A. But just a reminder, everybody, please don't forget what Memorial Day is all about. It's not about, your beach trips and your fun time, which is all great. And we're afforded those opportunities because of, what people, our predecessors and current folks have done for us. And I was mentioning Billy Ray Cyrus, he sings all gave some and some gave all for the freedoms we have. So don't forget that. I know, Jay, I mentioned to you earlier today, I was going to bring this one up. One hits close to home for you. And we both played baseball with this guy growing up, and one of your buddies from school, Jayton Patterson, and he's one who gave all for the country, as a Marine in war for our freedoms. And, I can't thank him enough, and all the other soldiers who've done that and who fought those battles for us. Did you have any thoughts on any of that, Jay?
Yeah, Jayton was killed January 15th of 2005 in Iraq, and, lifelong friend. And, he had a 2-year-old daughter at that time. Just, I was actually at his house when the news came. I got there before even his dad got home from his dad had been out of town a couple hours away. And, the house was full of people at that point. It's one of you just don't forget those moments, seeing how his father reacted. I couldn't even go in the room and face his mom. But, yeah, so I actually named my son after him. So my son is named after my son Jayton. That's where he got his name from. And like you said, that's what this weekend is all about. So
no doubt. So that is going to wrap up this edition of the ACC Huddle. Just please be sure to check us out on YouTube at the College Huddle Podcast and online at thecollegehuddle.com. And finally, you can catch Jay and me on YouTube at the Cavalier Connection Podcast, on X at Talk UVA Sports, and on Instagram at _Cavalier_Connection_. Just make sure, give us a follow and a like. Stay tuned tomorrow night. We're gonna be rolling out an episode of Cavalier Connection tomorrow night. So busy couple days for us. But we hope everybody has a great evening, and we will see you next Friday.
Go Hoos.